All right, welcome to the Expansion Chamber episode 10. I'm joined again once by Pete of TFN 15, and we got some new stuff going on with him. But first, I want to introduce our special guest, Brianna of Up in Arms Accessories. If you want to introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey guys, my name's Brianna. I own Up in Arms Accessories. We make 2A themed coasters, decorations, jewelry, all that good stuff, as well as enjoy shooting and sharing some of that content when we can as well.
Do you have something you can show the audience, one of your products or something?
Yeah, so these are two of our more popular decoration pieces. So we've got a full
Nice.
bullet skull, a little bit smaller, and then we have the larger one. So those are two of our different colors. We have an assortment of them. You can see them all on our website, which is just upinarmsaccessories.com. And then I've got a couple different coasters here. So those are two of those that are
Nice.
available.
Very
Trying to
cool.
settle
Sweet.
there.
Are those 22 rounds on the coaster there that are going around?
So these are 9 millimeters all the way around it. Some of them
Okay.
might have been a 380 that snuck in there, but for the most part, there's that. And then in these coasters, which I do like a river pattern, again, we've got an assortment of colors. I can do 223s, 300 blackouts, pretty much anything smaller than the 45 because those are too thick to fit in here.
Nice.
I can put them there in the
Cool.
coasters as well. So
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, so today we're going to talk about one of the bigger stories that's been popped up recently is the indictment of Daniel Penny. The fact he's been indicted for manslaughter, I think it is the official charge.
Mhm.
He has released a statement, so I figured we'll play that really quick, and then we'll talk about it.
Manhattan, so I take the subway multiple times a day. In this instance, I was coming from school. I got out of class around 2:15, and I took I was at J Street Metro Tech, took the Uptown F train. At 2nd Avenue, a man came on, stumbled on. He appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed, and he ripped his jacket off and threw it at the people sitting down to my left. I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. And the three main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm going to kill you. I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." You know, this was a scary situation, and Mr. Nearly came on. He was threatening. I'm 6'2", and he was taller than me, so it was. And there's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear. And you know, I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him, and the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
Yeah.
So that's his statement, kind of recapping the incident, and then his side of it.
I mean, Pav, like there's a lot to unpack in that statement, but one of the indications, one of the parts of the statement there was that there were other folks who were on the train who witnessed this. He was threatening everyone, and also others who helped restrain Jordan Neely with Daniel Penny. Now, of course, to us, we don't care about race, but the left is obsessed with it. So since they are, I'll just let them know that one was definitely a gentleman who was a person of color, one who was Black, and one who's Latino. So these guys helped hold him down. So just a little background on me for the audience. I'm from New York, one. And two, I'm a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've trained for many, many years, working for that black belt, guys. So give me a break. It's been 12 years. But no, so if you want to go back to that photo, it's hard to explain this from a photo. But first, let's talk about the restraint that was utilized. So on the left-hand side there, you see what looks like a choke there. And that is what's commonly known as the rear naked choke. It's a carotid artery choke. It's a blood choke, not an airway choke. So, a lot of folks have seen the old images of the 1980s with a cop choking someone with the billy club across the neck here. That is an airway choke, right? That can collapse someone's esophagus. A blood choke puts pressure on the jugular. I don't know if you guys can see, but like where my hands are on my neck here, right here. So as you squeeze both sides, you're restricting blood flow to the brain, and that causes someone to pass out. So what you would be doing if this is a neck here, I don't know if you can expand out real quick, Pat.
I'm trying to see if I can make you look bigger.
If my arm here is a neck, you would put it in the crook of the elbow, and it's putting pressure on both sides. And then you're pushing the head forward into that choke. So really, it shouldn't take more than 6 to 12 seconds to put somebody completely to sleep if the choke is applied properly. However, Daniel Perry in this instance mentions that he was using the hold as a restraint and calibrating. That's a key word that he used in his statement, calibrating. So while you're rolling with someone or sparring with them or fighting them in a grappling scenario like this, you're constantly adjusting, right? If the guy was trained, Jordan Neely was not. If he was, he would be fighting my hands away from his neck, because as soon as you see that hand come across the neck, it's a dangerous position, right? And you're expecting someone to choke you, so you're fighting that, but he wasn't, right? So he's adjusting, and as he's holding Jordan Neely in this choke here, he's seeing if the guy's going to cut it out. Basically, if you guys somewhere on the internet, I think the original video, we tried to find it before this exists. It's all edited and memory hold at this stage. But if you see the original video, the guy's fighting, and Daniel Perry is trying to restrain him from moving around and fighting. And he's telling him to chill out. He's breathing and he's fighting. And at one point, you see his arm just go dead. Now, at that point, I believe that Daniel Perry didn't release the choke completely. He probably should have at that point, to be honest with you guys.
Seeing the picture. The guy's arm is still up here.
Yes. So on that left image there, when you see his arm kind of up here, that's at the point where Neely goes unconscious. At that point, it would be a prudent maneuver to kind of let the person go. They're going to come back too. But if you notice in the second image there, sorry, Pav, in the second image, he rolls him into what's called the recovery position, because his intent was to have him come back. Now, the reason why we do that, after you put someone out, you roll them into the recovery position. So if they vomit, which is often the case after one of these chokes are applied, what happens is it's really what it is a mini induced coma, a micro coma that you're putting someone into. And They sometimes vomit when they're coming back. If they're laying back, they can choke on their own vomit. So you turn them over to their side so that they can expel the vomit and, come out of it. Now, if this technique was life and death, and yes, if you do hold it for too long, someone can die. But if this technique was so dangerous and so horrible, there would be no jujitsu schools out there because we'd all be dead. I've applied this choke and choked people unconscious with it. I've been nearly choked unconscious with it. And I can tell you right now that it's very quick and it's painless. What happens is the room starts closing down on you, right? Everything starts going black in your vision, starts closing and narrowing down, and all of a sudden, poof, you see little sparkles and you're gone. And then you wake up, and every time it's the same thing. What happened? And now in this instance, Jordan Neely didn't wake up. Now, either one of two things happened. Either he held the carotid choke for too long. He wasn't restraining. He wasn't calibrating properly, which is possible, right? And Jordan Neely had lost blood flow to the brain for a duration that would have caused death, right? Or Jordan Neely perhaps was on some sort of drug that would have induced this quicker, much like other instances we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years.
George Floyd.
Right.
And so I saw the original video when it originally happened, like a month or so ago now. I saw the video. I can't seem to find it now, but I did see it, and it looks from the way he's acting and behaving. It's only a little bit of it, but I don't know. I could see definitely he's probably under the influence of something. The way the passengers describe him, and just similar to George Floyd, if you take a bunch of drugs and even if the drugs you take don't cause an overdose, especially if you're looking at like stimulants, right? An overdose of stimulants is different than an overdose of depressants, right? Depressants, fentanyl, opioids, heroin, that slows everything down, like alcohol. Stimulants, meth, cocaine, PCP, those sorts of things, that leads to like heart attack, strokes, those sorts of, similar things. So, especially if, I think with George Floyd's, they found like a ball of like cocaine or meth, or like, I think it was like an 8-ball, like a mix of meth and fentanyl, or cocaine and fentanyl. So something like that, everything's pumping and going faster and faster and faster. And ultimately that sort of overdose will lead to, you can read like an embolism or stopping of the heart or something like that. So,
well, he was complaining of not being able to breathe prior to the choke when he was first initially in the vehicle. And then they brought him out of the vehicle. That's a whole nother case.
And that's a whole other case, and that's a whole other disaster. But I think, in that, and I'm not excluding law enforcement from this conversation, but there's a difference between law enforcement and citizens, right? With law enforcement, there's a responsibility, there's a greater responsibility and duty to deal with this. But with a citizen, there's your job is yourself ultimately, right? Is it moral to try and help and protect others? Absolutely, and I think that it's the right thing to do. But you're not trained, right? You're not expected to have an extreme knowledge, right? Pete has a knowledge of jiu-jitsu and all these things. I have limited knowledge, right? I don't know what Brianna's knowledge level is on this sorts of stuff, but
yeah.
Where's your grappling knowledge at, Brianna? Big game. Let's go.
Backyard scrappiness, not top tier.
But
so that's why
like
the average person sees this. Sorry to cut you off, Pat, but like the average person sees this and they go, "Oh my goodness, this man choked him." And for me, I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay, so he's got the choke in. Where are his feet? Does he have his hooks in? How is his control? Let's see. I'm looking there. It's we can't see his feet. You see him crossed around his waist though. So my assumption is that, or maybe it's not. Maybe that's the other passenger's leg.
I think at one point, I feel like he has his. Let me see if I can.
I mean, he does. He is a former Marine. Well, you're never a former Marine. He is a Marine, so he did take combatives in the Marine Corps, and they do teach quite a bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in that system there. But I will tell you that, like, if you're using the choke alone for control of an opponent, it's not the best methodology. For example, Pat, if you want to blow up real quick, I just want to show everyone another grip that could have potentially been used here that would have not choked Jordan Neely is a seatbelt grip, where I would come over the right shoulder, let's say with my right arm, and like a seatbelt, the arm would cross over here and you would just be pulling back on the person. However, it's a very squirrely kind of grip, and calibrating, as Daniel Perry said, would have been constant. And therefore, when you engage the choke loosely, right, as a control method, you kind of can quickly switch it to putting someone to sleep quickly if they get out of hand. For example, if he reached in his pocket and he had a knife or some sort of a stabbing implement, that's when a choke is not your best friend. So, that's really,
so I
those
did
are the
find
two choices he sort of
this.
had from that position.
And it looks like his left leg is wrapped around him.
Right.
I was gonna say, I think the one video I saw is he did have them like completely wrapped around and almost like crossed at one point.
Yeah.
And so I mean, you've got two other passengers as well trying to help out.
Mm-hmm.
So
why aren't they being indicted?
That was honestly one thing that, as I looked into it more, it's like you only hear about Penny, you don't hear about the other two helping. And like he pointed out, it's like, I wasn't the only one that felt this way. Other passengers jumped in to help me. They weren't fighting against Penny. They were trying to help him. They obviously realized, that was a threat they were trying to contain, so it didn't escalate more, turn into one of those situations like the gentleman running around at the playground stabbing, women and children.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where that could go.
Like there's all these such horrible situations.
Warren,
Brian and I were talking about this the other day. I was like a year or two ago, where I think it was in Pennsylvania, like in Pittsburgh or somewhere, like a big city, where a woman was raped on a train and everyone's watching, right? And we've talked about this in the show before, but it's these situations where it's like, okay, it's what is going to happen, right? If everyone just sat and watched, and Jordan Neely had his way, what would he have done, right? He could have done nothing, right? And that's what people, he was just a kind, innocent Michael Jackson impersonator. But
he's got 44 crimes on his record. I believe one of them was an attempted kidnapping of a 7-year-old child. I believe, please fact check me, I could be wrong. Another was trying to push an elderly person, I believe 65-year-old person, into the subway tracks.
And that happens all the time too.
And that happens all the time. And nowadays in particular, it happens quite a bit. And I just want to, I mean, I know I'm occupying a little bit of time, but in another way, Pat, I'm a New Yorker, obviously. Definitely feel sorry for me, ladies and gentlemen. So I do have a very unique perspective from the subway, and I would love to kind of just chime in on that real quick. So the subway is an interesting place. There's so many types, and different types a day. You get different vibes, right? Like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. It's all construction workers, all hardworking people going to work, right? Everyone who earns their living in New York. We have a lot of construction going on, so that's what you mainly see. Construction workers at that time of day. But when you get into this like kind of prime time, it's a big mix. You get, depending on the stop too. If you're in Midtown, you're going to get a lot of professionals. You're going to get a lot of students coming from other stops, so on and so forth, right? So you never quite know what the vibe might be. At 3 o'clock, you're always nervous because the high school kids get out. Those are the kids that you're most freaked out and nervous about. There are always fights. There's always shenanigans going on. Theft, little petty crime like stealing a hat or something stupid. Someone jumping someone, kids fighting with other kids. It all goes on constantly. So as a New Yorker, you really, in the sense of true Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Spider-Man sense, you do have your spidey senses constantly going because you're never trusting the room. You never know what might come onto that train. And we deal with crazy homeless people quite a bit. So one of the critiques that you're going to hear about this instance is that a lot of our friends, our left-leaning friends in New York have been saying, well, this is common. This is typical, everyday, common stuff that you see on the subway. And it's not a death sentence to be crazy on a New York City subway, which I can agree with. When I was a kid, there was this one guy. I used to ride the N train every single day. And every single day at Queensboro Plaza, this guy would get on the train and I would recognize him. Everyone always recognized him. He had the same speech every single day for 12 years. And his speech went like this. I almost have it verbatim. He goes, "Hey, everybody, I'm back. I'm teaching kids basketball now. I'm doing much better, but every little bit of help, helps me out a lot. And if anyone's watching this, they know exactly who I'm talking about." He goes, if you can't donate a little something to help me out, at least just give me a smile because it helps my day a lot, right? So I would just smile at him because I'm like, I'm not giving you any money. Like that's like the common New York, yeah, chill. If I gave my money away, it would be all day, every day. So, case in point, there's that guy, and you're kind of like, all right, I get it. That's our friendly neighborhood vagrant, no problem, all good. Then you start escalating. Like I said, you have the teenagers who start acting up. You have crazy homeless guy. Sometimes you get a crazy homeless guy. My wife, this has happened to her many times, and it's disgusting. Some guy will pull his junk out on the train and do stuff, and the women go and then they just ran out of the car and like go to the next car, and like he's not going to do anything. He's just a pervert, right? So that's another escalation of a level, right? Even though you're subjected to that. Then you have the guys who will say stuff to you and like mumble and like crazy people. And then you have once in a blue moon a guy like Jordan Neely who's really nuts. A few months ago, before all this, there was another guy on the train, a black man who was yelling at a white family, and he was screaming to the kids. It's a father and a tourist with their suitcases and two kids and a wife, and he's saying, "Your little white monkeys, those little white monkeys, they're awful stuff, like really racist, horrible stuff to these kids." And the video made a big splash on social media, right? That situation, I told my wife, she's like, "Well, what would you have done? You fought him?" I was, "No, absolutely not. I would have told you to go to the other end of the car, and I would have stood right there between him and you guys." You know what I mean? And so there's that level of escalation. Then there's a guy like Jordan Neely. Now, I have pulled up his statements here. And what he said on the train that day, he said, he hopped on the F train and he said, "I don't care. I'll take a bullet. I'll go to jail because I would kill people. I'm going to kill people on this train." That's a threat. That's a threat of life and death, right? So, still, most New Yorkers, if that guy's saying that, are going to sit there, and we're the kings and queens of minding our own business. We're just going to sit there and be like, "This motherfucker's crazy. I'm going to keep my eyes open. If I have to get up, I'm going to get up and move." Most people are just going to chill there. Now, you get a guy like Daniel Penny who's like, "Yo, I don't know what this guy's about to do. I have the capability of stopping this. Let me stop it." And that right there is what this case is about, whether or not he should have gotten up. And if they can prove that he had the right to do that, then he'll walk away. But I don't know about that anymore, because I believe we're losing our right to self-defense in this country.
And so I looked up, because I don't know New York laws, I looked it up really quick. New York menacing, if you do something that puts another person in reasonable fear of physical injury or death.
I one note on that though, the reasonable fear thing. I actually had a conversation with another officer that used to work for Melbourne PD at one point about that particular type of consideration. In that case, if it were me on that train versus Daniel, I would have a better argument saying that, I feared for my life than Daniel. There is that, gender precept with that, where it's like, women have kind of the leg up on being able to say, "Hey, no, I was fearful for my life," because reasonably so, in a hand-to-hand combat situation, I have less of a chance of defending myself against either of you. Like, that's,
even if you're trained, by the way.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to deny that fact at all. Like, this is not an even playing field. So for him too, it's like he's going to have a harder argument with that kind of fear justification too, because they're going to look at him and go, "You're a 6'2" ex-Marine," whether or not he said, "Hey, we get scared too." It's like, well, you're a 6'2" ex-Marine. Like, you have that perception, as much as it may not be correct. There is that underlying thing there.
Yeah, I think his best argument is more of the other people.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the ex-Marine. I'm the one who has the experience, who has the ability, who was willing to put myself in harm's way, versus these other passengers. And the thing is, it was other passengers as well that teamed up with him. And I think, how do I say this? I think there's this expectation that just because someone only wants to be violent to some degree, that means they get some sort of protection,
Mhm.
right? Like, oh, I only want to break your arms and legs. I don't want to kill you. So,
Mhm.
like, it's like, no, like once you have, and once again, this is to the average citizen. When you go to an average citizen is under threat of some sort of harm, right? Obviously there's okay, if someone says, hey, I'm gonna poke you, and you're like, okay, and then you run them over with a car, that might be a little bit much. But if someone says, hey, I want to hurt you, I want to kill you, right, and then someone does something to
Believe
defend
them.
themselves, what is the why do I have to, as the private citizen, why does the private citizen have to be like, you know what, I need to make sure I only use appropriate force against this person?
Well,
Why?
there is a force continuum, but how does the private citizen really understand that in the
And
legal context? They
why
never
should
have
they
dealt
have
with it. But
Why
they
should they?
shouldn't.
They shouldn't. Like why is it the responsibility of the private citizen to be like, well, I don't want to hurt this person who wants to, kill me or rape me or whatever. Too bad. It's like, no, like
Yeah. I don't.
this person forfeited their rights when they made a either by action or by word
Well,
the declaration that I want to cause harm to innocent people.
so I just want to say this. There were three options for Daniel Penny there with when he chose to engage, right? Let's take him not engaging out of the, let's just say it's a foregone conclusion he's going to engage. Let's say he's trained. So he could have went for the choke, which was, I think, the best and most logical response because he approached from behind. And that's why the choke is so dangerous because chokes that come from the rear like that are not seen by the opponent. Therefore, it's very hard to know what's happening before the choke is already engaged. And it's a dangerous technique. Or two, he could have tried to tackle him down to the ground and mount up on him and hold him there. But it took more than two or three of them to hold him, even though he had what appeared to be the back mount with his legs in and the choke engaged. Or three, the other thing that people don't realize in a grappling scenario is besides the choke, which is actually the kindest way to take someone down, is that you have limbs, and limbs are meant to be shredded and broken. So in that context, right, in the self-defense context, so I mount up on you and I say, hey buddy, I'm sitting now either on your solar plexus or if I'm less experienced, down by your hips where the guy's going to be able to toss me, right? But if I'm sitting up here on his chest, right, it's a lot of police officers are not allowed to do that because it would be considered somewhat of a choke, right? But if I'm sitting up there, what's the guy from the bottom tending to do? He's going to swing at you. And then when that arm comes up, I can snatch it. And it's like, listen, man, you got to calm down. I'm going to break your freaking arm. I'm going to break your arm. And you're right there in a perfect position to, do an armbar, a Kimura, an Americana. There's a litany of different things that you could do from that position. And let me just tell you something. As someone who's suffering right now with a shoulder injury from having been Americana, it's no fun. I can't sleep at night. My nerve was torn a couple years back. So the long and short of it is, right, he had three choices there, and he went for a restraint choke that it's really dual purpose. To call it a choke and to call it a restraint alone, either or, it's not really in either category. I mean, like he said, he was calibrating, which is a great way to put it. You're constantly adjusting, you're adjusting, you're adjusting, you're adjusting. And then but yeah, I will tell you, there's one guy out there who, his name is Rener Gracie. He's a very famous jiu-jitsu guy of the Gracie family who brought us to Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And his point of view is that, he was totally wrong because he held on for too long. I disagree. He wasn't in that situation. He didn't realize what Jordan Neely was bringing to the table in terms of threat level. He wasn't in the room. He couldn't hold that. And Daniel Penny was a Marine, so he wasn't a trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy who had 12 years of only Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training. I don't know if you guys know this, but Marines learn how to shoot, and they learn how to ruck, they learn how to survive, they learn how to do combative. So, they're not the greatest experts.
Training.
Right.
And kind of going back, once again, there's no expectation that a citizen should have to know, okay, how long, my eyes are watering, how long I need to hold this choke. Like, what is it? I think obviously he has some knowledge and experience because I don't think most people would have gone for something like that. But that's probably the most advantageous takedown because you're going from behind,
Absolutely.
right? So you have the element of surprise and you have control over their head, which is, if you control the head, you control the rest of the body. So, and once again, I don't think it doesn't need to be a fair fight. It doesn't need to be equal or any of that bull crap, because this man clearly stated, multiple witnesses, he wants to hurt people on this train. He's going to do that. He's under the influence of something that I think that is very reasonable to be like, okay, let's put a stop to this right now before he hurts someone, right? Because what is the alternative? You wait until someone's being hurt and then you intervene, and now you have an innocent person who's been injured. Like, it's ridiculous.
In New York, Seattle, San Francisco, places like that, that would be the answer.
That's what you'd have to do.
That's
in reality,
what the legal system would
protected.
That's what
right?
what the legal system would require. If the guy has a knife, you'd have to be slashed or stabbed first in order for you to, upgrade the threat level. And if you killed that person, let's say the knife was knocked from their hands. Well, now it's downgraded from a life and death situation to it's a squabble now between two people, right? In the eyes of most of these folks. But, that all notwithstanding, in New York, the jury of Daniel Perry's peers, there are no peers. I'm one of the few peers of Daniel Perry's in this state. You'll get a lot of people who are like, oh man, that's horrible what that kid's going through right now. He just tried to help out. And this guy who's a creep, who's obviously been in trouble with the law for all this, all these years, 44 counts, in and out of mental institutions, not on his meds, so on and so forth, right? You shouldn't get away with it. There's a handful of people who are going to say that, but in the Manhattan court, my friends, they're going to go, oh my goodness, this poor man. He's just a Michael Jackson impersonator. Everyone knew him. He's just one of those funny characters in the background in New York that you always saw.
Who got arrested constantly for, hurting innocent people.
I'm telling you, that's like such a commonplace thing in New York, though. That's why.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing is New York, it is no longer, and I've said this before, but I think this is a really great example of it. It's no longer about taking people's ability to defend themselves. It's getting the after the fact, the after action punishment.
Yes.
To be so extreme that no one wants to, right?
That's right.
So,
it's like Daniel that guy Penny, in Austin, Texas, the Perry guy too.
Yeah, the guy who was, Brian, I don't know if you're familiar with the case. Like a BLM protester came up. He had like a AK at the low ready, and he started walking up to this dude's car.
He pointed it at him.
Started to raise it, and so the guy pulled out his gun and shot the guy and drove off. And he got indicted, and I think he got found guilty.
Yeah, and Abbott says he's gonna pardon him.
Abbott said he's gonna pardon him, but yeah, he got found guilty for like murder or manslaughter or something. This guy pointed. Like, this is the thing. If someone just approached me, right, who's not a police officer with an AK to my car, like at the low ready,
I'm smoking.
Like, you're already fucked. Like, the time it takes, like, to draw from concealment, or wherever you keep your firearm in your vehicle, from this, like, this is so much faster. John Lovell has a great video he put out showing how like this takes no effort, and like even like the most untrained person can do this much faster than you can draw and fire.
Yeah,
and yet in that situation, he waited to have a gun pointed at him, and then he fired at him, right?
What was their argument? He should have driven away instead?
It was one of those mobs, Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
It was like a BLM mob. And I think the thing was essentially like a duty to retreat sort of thing, even though it's not even a thing in Texas. It's ridiculous.
Jeez, yeah. No, I'm with you guys. If someone points a gun at me, like, that's my first go-to is I'm going to draw and match you. I'm going to shoot before you have a chance to shoot me. I'm not even...
And I mean, if someone, and that's the thing, like if someone approaches you with a firearm, it's like, it's a very, like, what is going on here, right? It's one thing if they just have a gun on them, but if they have a gun in a position of ready, like they're ready to use it in some manner or other, okay, and especially like a violent mob, and you have some guy dressed up like Antifa, it's like, and that's the thing, they're simply being like, oh yeah, you can own your gun, but if you use it, you're going to jail. And like New York, right, you have a duty to retreat, right?
Yeah.
A lot of other states, things like the Castle Doctrine or other similar things where you have a right to defend your home. In New York, you're expected to jump out your 3-story, apartment window,
except in your
break
home.
your legs, and crawl away.
Except in your home, we do have Castle Doctrine here in your home.
Okay, New Jersey. It's New Jersey.
Yeah, you have the duty to retreat anywhere else, though. So as a concealed carry permit holder,
I believe you have a duty to retreat from your home.
Yeah, we don't have a duty to retreat from our home here, thank God. But we do have a duty retreat in the street somewhere, I'm a concealed carry permit holder. I do carry all the time. And so, if I'm in my vehicle, I'm trying to get away from whatever is happening. If it's a robbery, for example, an armed robbery, if I am getting carjacked, I suspect that, and the gun is pointed at me. All right, I'm like, okay, I'm getting out. That's what they want you to do, is get out of the vehicle. But when I drive around, I'll have my shirt tucked back behind my appendix carry, and I'll have the piece just sort of just chilling there, right? Like, because it's very easy to, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of like come up from there already. You have to clear the garment or anything, and the seatbelt's behind it. So it's if you shoot first, man, you should expect that you're going to go through a long, drawn out case.
Yeah.
And with these new DAs like Alvin Bragg, who frankly is Soros funded,
a lot of these Soros DAs.
Yeah, and I don't care what anyone says. That's not an anti-Semitic slur to criticize a guy who's funding people who are bringing these cities to. I mean, look what's happening in places like San Francisco. Everybody's leaving. Not only the people, but the businesses are all clearing house. They're gone. So something's going on here, and that's the bigger picture of this conversation, I think, tonight, which is to say that, God, I've been saying this. God, you know this. How long have I been saying this, Midas, on my channel, and on my feed? They don't need us. You don't need to kill the Second Amendment. They don't need to get rid of it. Who cares about the stupid Second Amendment? That's just a political battle. All they have to do is put in DAs who are going to allow lawlessness to continue.
Yeah.
And outlaw self-defense.
They normalize lawlessness and criminalize self-defense.
Touching on your retreat thing about, getting out of your car and just, it was a couple weeks ago, I saw a video of a carjacking where the guy got out of the car, walked away. The guy had, some sort of pistol situation, ready to go. The guy's leaving. And I forget if he kind of said something towards him at the end, but they just popped him in the head twice. Just killed him. He got out of the car, he walked away. And
yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
2 shots, boom. And I was, I'll ask for forgiveness later and have my life.
And it all goes back to that. And I think, you've already touched on it. Inherently, Brianna's at a disadvantage from the three of us, right? If the three of us were put in the same situation, with Jordan Neely or a carjack or anything, right? Especially anything where there's a physical disadvantage, right? And that's why it's so.
I'm positive she's smarter than the both of us, Midas.
She's all my cards quite yet.
She's absolutely smarter than me. Then I'll just speak for myself.
But no, but that's the beauty of firearm ownership, and I think, and I'll kind of let Brianna speak to this, but obviously I think there's a different thought process for her than for me. Walking down the street, in the city at night, I think about things a whole lot different. Or Pete thinks about things a lot different than you do.
Yeah, I mean, I was messaging you when we first started talking about downtown the one night when, I'm constantly watching people. Our homeless population down here is kind of progressing a little bit. It's it's a little crazy. The drugs are rampant. Constantly seeing homeless people tweaking, and I just, until I'm far enough away or around the corner, I am constantly looking back. I don't know what you're doing. But in the one particular instance, I told him I was walking with my friend, down a sidewalk, and there was a homeless man on a bike coming towards me. And as I'm walking, he rides his bike next to me, and I'm already kind of I don't really like this situation too much, but he reaches out to grab me. And he kind of got me a little bit, but my only reaction, I just karate chopped him as hard as I could on his arm. And, just was what the heck, no, my friend was just what is happening? And I was just did you not see that happen? And even after he drove past, it's now I'm looking back to make sure he's not coming back around from behind. It's paranoia, if you will, or even...
No,
the other instance
that's not paranoia. No, I disagree. That's awareness. It's different. And if you want to
paranoia is worrying about something that can't happen or you have no control over. I'm paranoid about a meteor hitting the
Yeah.
earth.
Right.
But being mugged or robbed or raped, like that's just reality, unfortunately.
And I think you did the right thing. So, two stories. So my mom once was walking. We have like in my old neighborhood, we have like an elevated train. So when you see them, like the trains that rise above the street and cars drive underneath the train trestle. So she was walking, under the train in kind of a dusky time of day, coming from the pharmacy. And some guy was following her. And when she did the thing that you were doing, looking over her shoulder, again, we're New Yorkers. We're very aware. We're very focused, right? Like on what goes on around us a lot of the time. She noticed he was closing the gap on their distance much faster than she was walking forward. Right.
Right.
So she's like, oh shit, that's a standard thought procedure, but my mom kicked into fight or flight. And as soon as he closed the gap between her, my mom stopped dead in her tracks, turned around and said, hey, you, I won't use the curse words, but hey, you MF, what do you think you're doing right now? You better back up away from me. She started screaming so that every single person around her could hear what was happening. If, there might be a person like a little bit down the block there and a little one hanging out the window over here. So the guy then all of a sudden panicked, freaked out. He's like, no, I'm not. And she's like, yeah, you're not. I don't think so. You better back the hell away from me right now. And the guy took off running, right?
Right.
So that is the thing. You have to be, it's like dog psychology. You have to be a bit of the bigger dog in the fight and let them know that you're not going to be a victim. Now, to some maniacs, that's not going to stop them. You want to keep moving away from that person, creating distance. That would be my recommendation. Always keep yourself at a minimum of arm length away from someone, so that they stay out of that, like your zone. But once you feel someone encroaching on that, like little, whatever your radius is, let's say a 3-foot radius around you, you have to then act accordingly and create space, right? So,
right.
I don't know if you've ever broken up a fight. I did once. There was something like 15, 20 something kids after school fight. 2 girls were going at it in the middle of the street on 6th Avenue and 48th Street in the city, 47th Street, sorry. And I just was so sick of seeing it. Like, I just ran into the middle of it. Like, I told my work friends to just chill with our work gear. And I was like, yeah, I'll just chill right there. I got to do something. And they're like, what? Wait, what are you going to do? And I ran in. I was like, back up. You back up. Like, I broke up this big fight with these 2 girls. And all you see is this crazy dude like me.
Right.
And I'm like, go fucking home. You go home. You go home. Get out of here. And everyone was like, oh, crap. Someone crazier than us is here.
Right.
Right. And then it all broke up and, there was a little chirping going on from the kids. And I was like, whatever. I had a couple things to say. And then they all took off. You have to be the bigger dog in the fight. So what you did by smacking that guy's hand away, karate chopping, whatever you did, judo chop, boom.
Yeah,
right?
It was my first reaction.
Excellent. That's a great, I would say that is great. Create space, keep moving away, but also assert some dominance so they know that you're not an easy target.
Yeah. It's even like thinking about if I was in the instance of Daniel, it's like I would be sitting in my chair, probably shaking, considering when is an acceptable time to present a firearm in that instance, because obviously, you have to have something before you can, we learn that in your concealed carry classes, basic handgun classes. And it's just like, even in the instance I was telling you about the other day at Publix, it's like my whole thought process was, if this guy comes at me, when can I do this to protect myself? Am I going to now go to jail? And then I'm looking around at other people like, are any of these people going to help me? And, no, the answer is no.
No one is coming.
Yeah, when I was maybe, I want to say like 7 or 8 years old, I remember, but quite a little bit of time ago, when I was younger, I was at the grocery store with my mom, and this like weird, I don't know if he was homeless or what, but guy was like following us around the store constantly. And so I don't know if I recognized it or my mom did, but we went to an employee of the store and there was a manager or something. It's like, hey, can someone walk us out? Right. And, I wouldn't have, obviously I'm like a 7 or 8 year old. Like, what am I going to do? But, it's situations like that where, luckily, I don't know what would happen if, it wasn't noticed or observed that, hey, there's someone following us around the store. And I still think about that because it's like, these situations where now every so often I'll like see some homeless dude like trying to approach me or something. I'll be out and I've had homeless dudes approach me and stuff like that. And, it's not that I'm not concerned, but it's like, as long as no one fully gets the drop on me, I can probably handle what I need to handle. Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like, oh, I don't care what happens to me. It's no, I know if someone tries something, I probably have the advantage up on them. Right. They're probably not expecting me to have a gun and any other tools that I might present to them as well. And the combination of all that, I can probably handle business, but it's impossible to be fully aware of everything, right? There's plenty of times where I'm like, all of a sudden there's someone there. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize they were there. I was paying attention to these other people, right? A lot of crime, a lot of times you'll have like decoys, right? You'll have criminals, especially in bigger cities. They have someone distract someone, and then someone comes in and does the carjacking, does the robbery, does the theft, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just like magic, right? The way you perform a trick is you get them to all focus on something else, and then that sleight of hand occurs right in front of their face. So, there's no ultimate win. There's no like, oh, I have super vigilance, observance all the time. But I think as long as you have something that's more than the average person, because criminals are looking for easy targets. And if you're paying attention, if someone isn't just buried in their phone, isn't just buried in conversation, is actually picking up what's happening around them, I think you're a lot better off. Because I've seen so many people that are so engrossed in their phones, engrossed in whatever they're doing, focused on a conversation with someone, and they would not even know if someone was walking up to them right in their face with ill intent.
No, and I will say, like you mentioned, being the bigger dog, I have noticed if I feel like someone's following them and I just stop and stare at them, like acknowledge that I see you doing whatever you're doing. Most of the time they're like, okay, and they'll, go their way. It's happened a few times because I'm just like, to some extent, if I'm in the grocery store and someone I feel like is following me, I am not in the mood to deal with that at all. I don't think anybody is. You want to get in and out, especially the Walmart here down on Sarno. That is
just any Walmart. It's like
realistically. But you're just like, I want to get my items. I want to get out of here. I want to go home where I kind of know the lay of the land, the people, but being aware to the best of your ability. And most of the time, I think if you confront people, like you said, they want an easy target. If you're confronting them already, acknowledging that they're there, they're going to kind of be like, okay, no, that's not the person I want, and, move on, which is not to say don't report something if you see it and it's apparent that that's what they're doing. You could save somebody else in that fashion instead of, taking your out and moving along.
So here's the other thing. We are living in a time where mob rule is what is being, you're sort of convicted before you even go to court. You're guilty until proven innocent now, which is what's happening with Daniel Perry, right? So Al Sharpton's involved, the National Action Network is involved. So what the
full race bait goof troop.
So they're in it already, stating that he's been wrong, and Jordan Neely's family suddenly appears out of nowhere and says, wow, he was such a good person, and oh my goodness, Daniel Perry deserves what he's going to get. And but they never took him in and helped him. And
that's something I wanted to touch on too.
And the uncle, by the way, who is saying all these things, has since been arrested twice for fraud, credit card fraud, in the process. So that just elicits some of the character of these folks. But you're convicted by the mob before you even go to court. So how is it that you can nowadays have, with the media that we currently have, which we all know is extremely left-leaning, how do we even have a fair trial? Now, let me give you another example here. I'm looking at a case. The man's name is, Jordan Williams. Now, the way that
do you want to share it up on the screen?
You know what? It's not really. It's just you can't see his picture or anything. It's just some writing. But I will say this: a Queens man was charged with stabbing and killing a man during a dispute on a New York City subway train on Tuesday night in Brooklyn. The police said Jordan Williams, 2020, stabbed the victim, DeVictor Quadrago, 36 on a northbound J train. The police said officer found that Mr. Quadrigo, a Brooklyn resident, on the platform of Marcy Avenue station in Williamsburg around 8 p.m. with a stab wound to his chest. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Quadrigo had gotten into a dispute with passengers on the train, including Mr. Williams' girlfriend. What they're failing to tell you here at the New York Slimes is that this man was threatening people's lives on the train and punched the girl in the face after being told to back away multiple times. This is my understanding of the case. And then they got into it. Now, this guy escalated, pulled out the knife. I'm not sure. Did he feel his life was in danger? Was he losing a fist fight? Right? Was he going to get knocked out and thrown under a subway train, or, God knows what else was going to happen to him or his girlfriend? Just carrying the knife in New York is a criminal act. Just carrying a knife, whether it's for work or whatever, right? On your person. You can have it in a backpack or something like that. But if you see the little knife clip sticking on your pocket, you're going to spend a night in the tombs, they call it. It's like the overnight jail. So I'm just letting you know, this case is memory hold already. It happened a week and a half ago. And this is now at the height of this stuff they even mentioned it in the article there. They mentioned Daniel Perry at the height of the Daniel Perry frenzy, where you have people on Twitter, on social media saying that he's a white supremacist. And we know that he's a white supremacist, Daniel Perry is, because he was wearing black sneakers with white laces on them, Vans with the white, Vans like skate highs. He was wearing skate lows, which have a white, around they're black sneakers with a white stripe and then white laces. And he's like, well, everyone knows that white laces are from skinheads and white supremacists. They wear white laces on black shoes. I mean, it's a common thing. I mean, I might be one right now because I'm wearing a black shirt with a white logo on it. You know what I mean? Like that's how
my outfit now. Hold on.
Right. It's like all I wear is black something with white something on it.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of shenanigans that are going on around there. But no one's saying anything about Jordan Williams. I wonder why. Oh, that's right. Because Jordan Williams is black, his girlfriend's black, and his attacker was also black. So, that story is gone. That story, you will never hear anything. He probably won't get a manslaughter charge or whatever. But we are dealing with the systemic issue of white supremacy when it comes to Daniel Perry. Now, let me just say this. Do I think some incidents are racially motivated? Oh, my God, yeah. Obviously.
That black on Asian violence.
There's a lot of that. I mean, but most incidences are actually intra-racial, not interracial, because it's just the proximity issue. Black folks tend to live with other black folks, white folks with other white folks, Asians with Asians, so on and so forth. But in this instance, we're being told that, it's like the story in and of itself, the way I read it to you, was a cover-up. I told you the facts of the case, and in the New York Times article, it was like, oh, an altercation happened where a man stabbed another man. So terrible, right? But you don't know any, you know what I'm saying? But you don't know the details surrounding the case, which is another self-defense issue. And in this case, it was a black man defending himself against another black man. Now, should that guy not have the right to defend himself? Should Daniel Perry or that Penny or that guy Perry down in Austin not have the right to defend himself against a mob of neo-communists, coming at his vehicle with an AK-47 for crying out loud, like the evil gun, the AR and the AK, the
AR-47,
the
AK-47.
So I mean that's what I mean about the shenanigans of the perception before this even goes to trial, and will he be able to have a jury of his peers adjudicate the case, or hear the case properly? I doubt it. It's another Kyle Rittenhouse instance, right? And they're very mad that Kyle Rittenhouse, in their eyes, got away with murder.
A free man,
right?
Oh yeah. I think perception is huge, and the problem with most people is they'll take what's on the news and they'll go with it, and they won't do their own research. So, this weekend when I was kind of trying to look in more to it, find the video, really watch it, even the articles now, like you pointed out, now his family shows up and says, oh, well, he was unhomed, which I find amusing for other reasons, person, you know, with mental health issues. It's like, well, if you're his family and you care about him so much, why were you not helping him? Like, this article doesn't tell anybody why you were, you know, what you were doing to help him to recover from that. So now you're just coming out of the woodwork saying, well, you know, this family member of mine shouldn't have been injured, you know, shouldn't have done this. You're not touching on what he was saying to people, the threats he was making. You're just saying, you know, being on the subway as a black man shouldn't be a death sentence, which in that sense, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
of course. I mean, those are wide open platitudes.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like
They're
walking down the
ridiculous
street
statements
shouldn't
on
be
their
a death
face.
sentence, right?
Yeah.
Walking down the street shouldn't be a death sentence, or I don't know, eating at the local diner should not be a death sentence. I mean, like, you know, driving
No,
your
if
car.
you eat at the local diner, you'll be beaten for being gay right after you get married or something.
I mean, I'm just saying that these instances, right, are being shaped by a media that has a very particular narrative, and we are here at a time now where, again, the Second Amendment does not matter. It does not matter. Your right to bear arms doesn't matter. For example, if you can't use those arms, for example, I am a concealed carry weapons permit holder in New York now. I've taken the 16-hour course plus a 2-hour live fire training and so on and so forth. Now, in response to the Supreme Court and our Bruin case that won this for us, thank you, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association, the governor of New York, she decided, oh, we need to fix this problem that people can now get their concealed carry permits. So they essentially, what the New York State said was, oh, you guys don't have a carry permit? Oh, we've been so remiss. Of course you can get your carry permit. You're going to have to take a 16-hour course and this, that, and the third, but you know, you'll be able to get it. But we're going to fix the law now. It's now called the New York Concealed Carry Improvement Act. And it essentially means that you cannot carry a pistol anywhere except for basically in your car. And they've just amended the laws to, like, because if you want to go onto private property, the store has to have a sticker on the door that says, yes, you can carry a gun in here. Which, what are you going to do? Who's putting that sticker on there? I am. And when I open a store, I'm opening up a store later this year. So when I do, it's going to be a big old sticker that says, come on in with your gun. I'd love to see it.
Your guns, show us what it is.
yeah, for sure. But no, I mean, so now we're fighting that, and that'll be tossed. They've already told the Second Circuit to toss that. But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If the Second Amendment exists and it's enshrined in our Constitution, the localities will just make laws that outlaw self-defense now. So what do? Right? I mean, vote accordingly. But this is coming to a city near you. This just happened in Austin, Texas. Austin's supposed to be this, Texas is supposed to be this red stronghold, which really it isn't. It's becoming purple. Florida was purple before this last election, right? Where DeSantis, routed everyone, and these Cubans helped you guys out in South Florida and stuff, right? So, in Miami area, right? Like these Cuban refugees, like really vote like Republican and stuff. So, because they don't like these commie lefties. So, case in point, if you don't have your local populace on board, you're going to be the victim of mob mentality and the media's lies, even before walking into a courtroom.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Florida has been a huge target lately. It's amusing, but, trying to counter it's depressing. I saw a thread on Facebook. One of my friends, she posts not necessarily controversial things, but she'll open up things up to a discussion. And she does have a wide array of friends and people she's come across. She likes, the EDC, not EDC. The music festival EDC, not carrying a gun EDC.
Gotcha.
And just reading some of people's mentalities. And I do think victim mentality across the board is huge right now. Everybody's a victim of something. I could play the woman card that I don't, get whatever because I'm a woman and I'm not treated fairly because I'm a woman. Someone down the street could say, well, I'm gay, I'm not treated right. And the next person could say, I have this, so I'm not treated right. And that just has spread so much. And reading through this, you see people's state and where they're at and what the media is making people think. And you're just like, if you just lived, and assimilated with people and talked to people and kind of heard people's perspective, and instead of just scrolling through this and seeing, what people that have the exact same thought process as you are posting and sharing and thinking and had your own thoughts, we probably would be in a lot better place.
Yeah, people, I think intentionally want to be in the bubble, and I think it's appealing, right? Like, why would I want to talk to people who disagree with me? Why would I want to have to argue or to talk or discuss with people who aren't going to be on my side? So I get it, somewhat, but at the same time, it's like you gotta get past that, because I think so many people ultimately hurt themselves in the long run because they lose the ability to have conversations. They lose the ability to discuss with people. And I've seen this where I will speak with people who normally do not talk to people they disagree with, and they get emotional, they yell, they scream.
Yeah.
I'll be out somewhere talking like, hey, this is like, ah, and I'm like, whoa, I'm just having a different political opinion than you. It's not like I'm, worshiping, like Satan here, but that's how they'll treat you.
If you did, you'd probably be better off in their eyes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The other part of that is what people are being told right now is if people don't agree with you, they're inherently wrong. Where in reality, it's like, if we sat down and talked for hours, I'm sure we would find things that we disagree with each other.
Right.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's like, is it life or death? Is it really that serious? So I've got two choices. I cannot associate with you. I can argue with you, or I can just understand that we're different people and we're going to have different perspectives on things, and we can move forward and be adults.
Yeah. And it's not, it's not just an issue. And I think too often people are like, oh, that's just a left issue. And it's not a left or right. It's an issue all around. There's plenty of people on the right I will talk to, that, or on the left or in the center, whatever their political lining is. It's just an inherent inability, I think, for people to just disagree. They have a fear of disagreement. I think that's the best way to say it, is people are just afraid to disagree. They're afraid. It's like, oh, I don't want to be like, you get in a conversation with someone, disagree with them, they'll instantly just want to shut down the conversation because like they're afraid. They're afraid to disagree with you because they're like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm going to be judged. All this stuff. It's like, no, like I'm going to judge you because you're being a bitch. But people are just afraid to not agree.
Yeah, I think, that, frankly, that ruined one of my, it ruined my best friend and I friendship. We disagreed over the Kyle Rittenhouse thing. My friend's an incorrigible leftist. And over the last few years, since like 2019, he's become that much more of a left. He's gone into the deep. And he was posting craziness about Kyle Rittenhouse. This racist needs to be taken down now, and like just horrible things, horrible stuff that I would never post about anybody that I disagreed with, right? And I'm like, hey, I think you might be a little wrong on this issue. Let me send you this video. I sent him Colion Noir's take on the entire breakdown of exactly the events that happened, his view as a lawyer. And I was like, I really feel like, the kid was in the right and this is what's going to happen. Right. And then he was furious. How dare you send me this man's take on this? This is unbelievable. Like that the AR-15 was the proper weapon to bring to something like this. I was like, well, it was. And it just caused him to have an aneurysm. And I was like, hey, brother, listen, I see you're really upset. And somehow I've made you super upset. And that wasn't the goal. I thought we were just, because I'm in my 40s, right? And I'm like, bro, like I thought we could have like an adult conversation that we didn't disagree on. We didn't agree. You know what I mean? But obviously we can't. And that was the last time we spoke in 2020, I believe it was. Wow. So, yeah. And this is a guy I've known since kindergarten. We were friends since we were 6, and then best friends all of our teen years, and I've been there for him and vice versa. And then just that that wasn't the only issue, but I think I've always been a conservative in hiding, like in somewhere deep down inside. And I went through this like liberal phase, you know what I mean? In my younger, and as long as I was in that phase, he was cool with me and our other best friend, right? But as
Yeah.
soon as I started to assert myself as an adult with my own like opinions and my conservative mindset now, which I can't hold back anymore. I just feel like I have to be what I have to be. And by the way, I am a little bit liberal on some issues, but overall, I'm a conservative. And it just blew a circuit in his mind somewhere where he could not be a friend of mine because of my views. And I mean, listen, man, for the last 30 years, I had worked in television, almost 20 something years. And that's a very liberal place to be as a gun owner, a 2A, staunch 2A advocate, and a conservative. But I have to sit there and take all their stuff all day. Take it. I mean, I know none of us are conservatives in this room. Stuff like that. It says, but if someone was, I would be utterly disgusted with you. I've heard this sort of stuff at work. But imagine if it was the other way around. So, listen, it is what it is, right? But I will say that the nuance has been lost because critical thinking has been stolen from the youth, and in schools, it's an indoctrination factory, and the critical thinking mindset has been stolen. I mean, you could think critically as long as it falls in line with one train of thought.
Oh yeah, I also think and this may be perceived wrong, but I also think it's ridiculous to associate yourself completely with one party because there's
right.
And this may also not be perceived well. Like, I'm not registered to vote. I've never registered to vote. I honestly,
you're right. It's your choice.
I have, thoughts on it personally. It just, the whole concept of how it's done and just the way it kind of goes about just irks me. And I've never done it. At this point now, I know if I registered what I would register as to vote, but it's just like, I don't always agree with this side. Like some of, this over here is also like, what did you just say?
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side, I'm just like, I can't even, say that either. So it's like
you're picking between better and worse, worse and more worse, in many instances.
The idea that you're going to 100% agree with everything and everything else that somebody else says you think is wrong and don't agree with, I think is also insane. Like to be like, no, everything you say is wrong. And because you associate with that, you're, as people look at it now, you're the devil because you think that.
Let me give you
evil racist.
Let me give you a perspective shifter. Okay. So by the time this airs, Juneteenth will have passed. Okay. So Juneteenth is a Republican holiday. The man who created it was this officer in the U.S. Army. His name is Grady. He was a Republican, and he felt that he's a Texan, and he felt that people should be free, and this should be the day to commemorate it. Juneteenth, June 19th, Juneteenth in one term.
Right.
And the Republican Party was responsible for the emancipation of slaves in this country solely because they were fighting against Democrats who wanted to keep slavery. Now, if you said that to 90% of the people in a Man on the Street interview today, that would be like, shut up, fact check, let's see that. But today I was like, let me do the Juneteenth, click the Google thing on Juneteenth or whatever. And I did. And it said, what the holiday was and who was the leader and creator of the holiday. And it was this guy, Grady, who was, in fact, a Republican. It's the first thing in his wiki bio or whatever it was. And he was a white guy, right? So you would think it was like George Washington Carver or something, you know what I mean? Or, whoever it was, right? But it wasn't. So that's how far, and I saw the look on your face, Brianna, right? While we were just discussing that, you were kind of like, right? That's how far the perspective shift has come in our country, that simple facts like that are not known or understood. And if you did say that, people will, I would need you to fact check. I need to fact check that.
Well, it goes against everything that they've been taught and they believe, and the whole, premise of their argument about it is like, I will say I've never really taken the time to look into it just because I'm like, sure, another bank holiday,
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah. Cool.
I mean, I don't benefit from it. We still work today.
Right. I worked today as well. Yeah.
So I was like, whatever. I can't do half of my job because I can't call, the bank and my mail's not coming today. I'm like, all right, cool. I'll move on. So that's, something I haven't looked into. My boyfriend might have told me that at some point, but to be honest, sometimes he gets rambling about conspiracies and I turn off my ears because I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, my wife
Sometimes
can't take me anymore.
well, he just like he does it to the point sometimes where I'm like, all right, well, World War III is coming. What are we doing to prepare? You're telling me all these things. Like, we got to go do something now. Like, we can't. And he just gets to the point where I'm like, well, now I'm anxious. So,
Right. I mean, you have to offer some resolve there, but I don't know. Midas, what are we up to, man? Are we on track, or are we way off track as we always go?
I love to let it go and let you guys discuss stuff.
I mean, bringing it back though, what do we do to? What do we? I mean, it does come down to the vote in this instance, doesn't it? Like
the vote, and I think the culture. I think the
Mhm.
issue as well is people look at the Daniel Penny thing and they're like, oh well, I don't know if I would have done that, or I don't know if that's acceptable, because I think a lot of people look at that and they don't really know
mhm.
what the right or wrong is, right?
Do you still have the images that you had?
The three.
The three little.
I have this one still. I can get the other one up as well.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I think, like you're saying, is like look at all the facts, but this image on the far right, if you look at you've got Neely on the ground on his side. When you get it up, you'll be able to see it, and you've got the three gentlemen standing around him, and they're standing there. You really think if they thought that they harmed someone,
They would have been off that or tried to like get away, but there was nowhere for them to go because apparently it happened between train stops.
right.
But to your point, Daniel Penny immediately went to get the police immediately thereafter. He wasn't like he was like trying to get away or anything like that. He was like, hey, let me go get a cop so we can get this squared away.
But like, there's actually another gentleman in the back there. So you've got 4 people now in this image, and you have a lady in the middle one. It's like, those are not people that think they just killed somebody.
No.
Like, and that, I would doubt highly that in these images, 4 citizens in either screen would be that calm if they really believed that they had just killed somebody, or that, as we're saying now, Penny killed somebody.
Yeah, like I said, this is a recovery position.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't know if any of them were medically trained, right? So I assume that he was just thinking that, okay, he's asleep, so he'll come to any minute now, and then we'll just like tell him to chill out, and we'll get the police over here, and so on. But that's the other thing. So I learned, at least in my CCW course, that they go, is anybody here CPR trained? And I go, yeah, totally, right here. And they're like, okay, yeah. So when you shoot someone, do you perform CPR on them? I'm like, I don't know. He's like, well, you better, because if you have CPR training and you didn't, they're going to take that as if you were, trying to murder him in the court of law. And the first words that came out of my instructor's mouth were, behind every bullet is an attorney. And that was that was our mantra in class. That's what he made us repeat 1,000 times. Behind every bullet, there's an attorney. Behind every bullet, there's an attorney. And by the end of it, I was like, shit, I don't want to do this. I almost don't want to carry after this. Like, that's not true. But, it's, you almost don't want to, especially in a place like New York. However,
oh, no.
If I'm in a scenario where I'm in a position to protect my kids, I don't care what happens at that point to me. I'm here. My kids did not did not die that day, and my wife did not die that day. That's all that matters to me. That's the reason why I carry. That's the primary reason. One of the primary reasons. I have a few, but that really is the reason. And I feel that, if the police won't do their jobs, and neither will the politicians, then who's left, right? So we're at this weird crossroads right now.
Right.
And it's almost, again, it has to actually get worse before it gets better. We had this before in New York. New York's a great example of this. When I was growing up in the 90s in New York and experiencing it, like taking the subway everywhere because I didn't really have a car, or if I did have a car, it was a hoopty, and it's just easier to take the subway anyway. Parking is always a nightmare. you were always concerned and scared and afraid. You know, you'd be walking down the street with your buddy, like me and that kid I was telling you about before. We'd had 40 bottles winged at our heads. We have to run into the store to hide out to
Oh my
wait
gosh.
until because these gangs of kids would be roving the streets, and they took over everything, up to the point where we had over 2,000 murders a year in New York, something like 2,400 murders a year at its worst. And Giuliani ran against, I believe it was Dinkins the first time, and lost very narrowly, but lost. But then he won by a huge margin when things progressed and got even worse through Dinkins' term there. And again, it has to get worse. And then Giuliani brought in stuff called, first of all, there were metrics that were never done before, CompStats, like so your computer statistics that showed you what precinct had what crimes and what were the worst precincts in the city where more police attention needed to go. Computing was not a part of the process in the old days. And then this became a thing. Now everything, it seems silly to say that now because of where we're at with everything, how computerized it is, but that was a new concept, CompStats. And we all had something called broken windows policies, which, you know, the idea back in the old days with the old time cops who were 90s cops were, if someone breaks a window, who gives a shit, right? Who cares? That's you're gonna bring in a guy who broke in a window or peed on the subway or smoked a joint on the street. Give me a break. What, you're gonna waste our time with that? Well,
Right.
they found that, you know, they're like, bring me a murderer, a bank robber, a killer, whatever, right?
They wanted the notoriety cases.
Well, they not even that. It was just like they felt that those little quality of life crimes, graffiti, as an example,
Right.
were not that big a deal. But what they discovered was that once they started busting the guy who hopped the subway turnstile, they discovered that that guy had a warrant, and he had multiple warrants, and one was for rape, and one was for robbery, you know, and there were multitudes of examples of that. And then broken windows policing wound up helping us clean up the city, along with an overhaul of the police department, which was wildly corrupt in that era. But those policies have to come back. And until things get to the point where the streets are empty and there's 2,400 murders a year again, and they will get there. And we are we're working hard at it. New York is really trying hard to get back to those numbers.
Just those subway pushings alone.
Yeah, it's scary, man. And
I mean, the biggest thing with when it comes to preventing crime is having a lot of police isn't enough. It's proactivity, right? Like having cops going out there, stopping cars, just being present, patrolling neighborhoods. If you look at data, that is the number one way to reduce crime, right? But of course, you know, you have the defund the police movement, and it's still going, not as strong as it was a couple of years ago, but it's still going. And you know, I'm not saying let's blatantly support law enforcement, but we need a presence, right? Something, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's an idea in the culture that, hey, people are gonna do something if you fuck with them, right? They're, you know, fuck around and find out. I think that has lost a lot of it. You know, I think certain places you might still go. You go to like a rural town in West Virginia. You know, the cops may not show up, but the whole town's probably gonna come beat your ass.
Oh yeah.
But you know, in bigger cities, more urban areas, it's very much, I don't even know what to do, right?
We had
Something
the
happens.
Guardian Angels in our town. You remember that? What, you know what those guys were? They wore like black fatigue pants, like BDU pants, combat boots, and red like silk jackets and berets, red berets, and they were like a community organization that rode the trains like this. And you'd see them, like, this is when I was really young, like the 1980s, and they were standing on the train like that, just looking tough and stuff, in case, you know, because so many people were robbed left, right, up, down, left, right, and center, and they didn't have a police presence at all to stop those people. Insanity that, like, you had to have what you might consider a vigilante organization, but that's what it was. And let me tell you something. When I was a little baby boy or a young kid with my mom on the train, if you saw one of those guys, you were like, thank God the Guardian Angels are here. You know,
Right.
It's why should it have to come to that? Because you have shit policies. That's why.
I think even now with the police, and like you said, it's kind of died down a little bit. Oh, wow.
They're making a comeback now. That's a modern image of the and Curtis Lewa was who was the first guy you saw there, and the image there, that guy right there, the white dude there. He was the he was the one of the candidates for mayor this last go around, because again, we have an unsafe city and it's palpable. You can feel it now, no matter what your politicians tell you. Like this guy Adams, he's like, New York is a safe city. It's the safest, yeah, on paper, because they're not charging people with crimes. So
Yeah, they just let them go. I've talked to some cops in New York, like, and not just NYC. NYC is terrible, but like they go to arraignment, and like the cops have to go to arraignment with the person they arrested, so they don't just like take him to a jail or something. They have to go from the court, and then it's like, oh, yep, cash is bail, so you're just released. Yep. Come back to this court date that they'll never show up for.
And by the way, one of my many friends who's a police officer, he's told me like he busted a guy. I forgot for what. It was pretty gnarly though. Whatever it was, it could have been a rape. I don't know. Whatever, gnarly crime. And the guy, he took him back to his precinct, and he's sitting there filling out the paperwork on the guy, which can take forever. The guy who he busted is walking out of the precinct as he's filling out the paperwork on him, and he's going, "Fuck you, buddy." He's throwing him like the double barrel middle finger, and he's like, "Yeah, fuck you, man. I'm out. I do what I want to do." Like that kind of a thing. And it's the same guys over and over and over again doing heinous stuff. So when you make crime, theft, as an example, legal up to $999, you know what I mean? And that's why you get kids walking into stores with garbage bags, and they're just clearing shelves off. So now what do you have in I forgot what it might have been Chicago, where they have
closed like a Walmart or something?
Yeah, they have a Walmart that you go into, or not a Walmart,
CVS,
a CVS or Walgreens, and there's like one small little aisle with stuff that they don't mind if stuff gets stolen. But if you need a razor, if you need deodorant, if you need whatever it is that you need, you have to go to a window and you have to buy it, and then they come and bring it to you in the next window. So it's like almost like a drive-through, but inside. And that's like what the store has become, one large warehouse, because we are not prosecuting crimes, because the perception is that prosecuting a crime is racist because of the racial disparity in crime stats. I mean, all I'm saying is there may be a disparity. For what reason? That's what we have to be asking ourselves. And if people are growing up poor, let's help them. Let's get people education, but also let's prosecute crimes so that people who pay the damn taxes for the police can walk the streets in peace. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
there's zero fear of any consequence now, or an acceptance of responsibility for what you're doing. It's like, I can go out and do whatever I want, and you got to deal with it. It's like, if I go break your stuff, then too bad.
But I'm terrified to walk into a store that doesn't have the sticker on it that says, yes, you can carry in here.
Yeah, you'll go to jail for 20 years for that.
Classy felony.
You just robbed someone.
Right. So I have to lock my gun. I have to lock my gun in a lockbox in my vehicle. And I can only do it in some counties. One county, right in the neighboring county next door, doesn't allow you to leave your gun locked in the car, even in a lockbox, like a vault. So it's and the laws are so convoluted right now. Like I carry every day, but it's limited, so I have to be very smart on how I carry and where I carry to, and I'm just not going to be able to protect myself in every place, and I'm aware of that. Right. That's why I have a lot of non-permissive environment, like tools on my person as well. Mostly my wits, to be honest with you. I was at one point during the pandemic, work was so slow that I became I used to fill ATMs with like stacks of cash like this.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't have a gun, and I just had a bag of $30,000 in 20s, and I would be in the hood filling ATMs at nail salons and stuff like that, and like in the worst area of Queens, where my friend's a cop, and he's like, dude, I would not do that job if I was you.
Did you get hazard pay?
No, not at all. I mean, it's crazy. I'm a responsible citizen. I should be able to carry. Now, granted, there are a lot of dimwits out there who are not responsible. But I would rather take the chance on someone being a dumb shit with his gun and me being able to carry than not.
And in reality, at the end of the day, if someone wants to carry a gun, they're going to carry a gun. it's really only going to be the responsible citizen who's going to face the consequences of that, right? Because if I'm a criminal, I'm carrying a gun, I'm doing it to do something illegal anyways. But versus Pete's carrying the gun, I'm not saying I'm actually a criminal, guys. Versus Pete's carrying the gun, he if he uses it, it's only to be in self-defense, and then he might get charged anyways because you weren't supposed to be carrying a gun there. Versus criminal,
right?
Right, and I may wrong anyways.
I may beat the legal case, but then they may go, well, he can't carry a gun anymore because he was in a library with a pistol and he shouldn't have been, or something to that effect, right? So,
well, you think most of the mass shootings and things that have happened in gun-free zones. It's like you have a sticker, cool, that says "Don't carry a gun in here," but who is that
criminals are so
stopping?
good at following rules. Yeah.
Yeah, who is that stopping? It's stopping us who, want to follow the rules and do things legally. And
well, Texas now just ordered armed guards in every school. So there's no more. I bet you all the money in the world. I bet you all the money that I have in my bank account right now that
for me that'd be like $2, so like not
$2. So $2.
An easy bet.
So I bet you
Nice.
all the money. If I won the lotto, I would bet every penny that you're going to see next to no ever mass shootings in Texas ever again in a school. In a school.
Yeah, that's a good qualifier, but I agree. I think that should be, as much as people want to say, well, it's unfortunate you have to do that. It is unfortunate. Why don't we fix the root problem of why people are doing it?
Right.
Because the reason why is not guns. If somebody drives drunk and kills we had a story recently of someone drove drunk and killed a bride on her wedding night. Nobody's blaming her car.
Right. Well, I saw the first ever honest video today. Someone did a stitch on TikTok, and there was a kid whining about. Well, no, I'm sorry. That was the wrong thing to say. This kid was really upset about some kind of a mass shooting that just recently happened, and he was like, "It's the guns! It's the guns!" And the guy was like, "Hold up." He just stitched right in at that point, and he's like, "Guess what? You know what? Even if it was the guns in America, we don't take away law-abiding citizens' rights so that." Criminals, can be curtailed. You know what I mean? Because it won't curtail them anyway, right? That's not our ethos. It's enshrined in the Constitution, where you have the First and then the Second Amendment, right? Mm-hmm. They thought of it so heavily that it's the second thing right after you can say whatever the hell you want to say. So, we have to stop playing games with euphemisms and trying to comport with all these kinds of ideologies. You just have to be like, no, that's just a shit idea. You have a shit idea of not hardening the target. It sucks, dude.
Yeah.
What has that gotten us this far, right? Oh God, what's the guy's name? The 40-yard shot in the mall.
Eli Dickens.
Yeah, Elijah Dickens. If Elijah Dickens was in there, there would be a lot more than 2 or 3 people who were shot that day, right? And the guy put a 40-yard shot
incredible
on a guy. I mean, granted, he stabilized against the column. I would have too, and hit the guy on the first round, who was decked out in some kind of crappy Black Hawk kit, but whatever. He had an AR and he was going to town, and the dude put him down right there on the spot. He slumped him like a sack of potatoes. I loved it. I saw the aftermath photo, beautiful. And what if that guy wasn't there that day to stop that? Come on, man. So let's get real. We're not real. We're just choosing sides, and it's the same thing with the vax, right? Like the jab. It's like everyone chose a side on that. So let's just get real with it. And if people did study the FBI statistics, they would know that they're full of shit when they're talking about all these gun control measures that don't work.
So we are running to that hour and a half mark, so I want to start cutting. But I know, Pete, you do have obviously, we were originally going to do this in the beginning, but we kind of forgot about it. Normally, and Brianna may not be aware, Pete normally does not show his face at all.
It looks like this.
Normally, it just looks like that, right? He normally doesn't show his face at all in any of these, but he does. I don't know if you want to make the announcement here.
Well, for Pride Month, I'm coming out.
Yes.
I'm that was the joke. Ha ha ha. But no, in all
Yeah,
honesty,
Pete and I are
like,
married.
yeah.
Telling him
we're here, we're
Wow,
queer,
congrats, guys.
we're queer. Get used to it.
Oh,
So no. I'm actually going to be putting a lot more effort on my channel. So I have a channel TFN15 at TFN15 or TFN.15 on Instagram, and I'm not making the final announcement yet, but I have a big project in the works, and it's attached to my channel. So you guys are going to see a lot of reviews coming up. I just finished my studio, sent a picture over to Midas here. I'm so excited to do it. So, I'm kind of like leaving one profession for another, and I don't have to hide my ugly face. I'm sorry, guys. You have to see all this now. But, yeah, I'm just so psyched, man. I can't wait to start making great content for you guys. So just keep an eye out for that. That's all.
all right. So normally I like to end with a question. Brianna, is there a question or an idea that you'd like to have everyone formulate in their brains, answer in the comments, anything like that? Any suggestions you've got?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Pete said I was smart, but now you put me on the spot, so my brain stopped working. Oh, I don't know.
I'll hop in, and you can back. All right. What do we do, guys? What do we do to solve the problem of the outlaw of self-defense in the country? Do you want us to answer that question, Midas?
Yeah, I'd say let's pose it. I think for me, my answer would be it's cultural, right? We have to make it more culturally acceptable to beat ass and take names, right? Like in situations like that, it's like, yeah, no, that person deserved to get his ass beat because you just threatened a bunch of people on the train, right? And I think that's the mentality in some places and of some people still, but the majority of people are like, oh no, we should have found a peaceful resolution. No, like what? Screw that. There's no peaceful resolution when someone wants to be violent, right? And I'm not saying, be emotional about it. I'm just saying you stop that person in their tracks.
Right.
And then you don't have to be an asshole about it. But if someone's going to come into the situation already being the violent, evil, no good individual, you stop them, and then we can have the discussion from there. But I think so many people want a Monday morning quarterback and be like, oh well, they should have done this, they should have done that. Oh, you didn't need to. This was a kind, loving Michael Jackson impersonator. All that ridiculousness. So I think it's a cultural shift more than anything.
I would agree.
What do you think?
What do you think?
I agree. I think kind of part of our conversation today is people are desensitized to the threats, where it's like, okay, yeah, this person's saying they're going to kill me or hurt me, whatever, but they don't mean it. It's fine. I don't want to hurt them. Like that mentality. No, we shouldn't be used to that. Like it shouldn't be normal or comfortable for someone to come into your space and threaten you. And to be honest, if it was more acceptable to defend yourself, people probably wouldn't do it as much because they would be more concerned about the reaction somebody would have against them.
The armed society is a polite society, is what you're kind of saying.
Or I think it would either be people wouldn't do it, or the Darwin Awards would would prevent it from furthering.
I want to say, I do want to say this: if you're going to apply a choke, in particular, when I teach kids jujitsu, we are very careful around chokes with children because they can't. It's a delicate technique. When I tell everyone in any jujitsu class, when you're a white belt, when you're new, when you tend to start, you're very tight. Everything's a battle for you. And I tell them, listen, you're not fighting me. We're not opponents. We're training partners. Right. So if you're going to apply these techniques out there, really learn them thoroughly, apply them in a classroom setting first for quite some time. And I do recommend that everyone does jujitsu, especially for ladies. I do believe that a good choke is a woman's best friend in these scenarios, like you had the other day when you went with the old judo chop. But I do think it's worth it. Man, when someone puts their hands on you and you get into a scrap, most people don't understand what that feels like. Get comfortable with that feeling. So absolutely go out and train. And I think that if Daniel Penny had a little bit more training, and I don't disagree with what he did. And I don't think what he did was wrong necessarily, but I think if he had a little more training, perhaps Jordan Neely would have been alive today. But that wasn't Daniel Penny's It should have been his responsibility. Absolutely. That's right. So, you know, if you're out there, if you don't want to get in trouble, learn how to choke people properly, and learn how to defend yourself. It's well worth it. It's a good journey.
All right.
Great.
So, Brianna, where can people find you, support your business, all that good stuff?
Yeah, so my website is upinarmsaccessories.com. My Instagram is upinarmsaccessories. There is the
Underscore.
Underscore, yes, thank you, between each of the words. And then I'm on Facebook as well under Up in Arms Accessories. So check me out on any of those. We do cool stuff sometimes. I've not posted too much shooting content recently. One, because I got in trouble on Instagram, and two, because I haven't had too much time to get back out there and work on it. But I do have some cool stuff I'd like to get out and do with that. But
Yeah, I just got zucked the other day. I couldn't do anything. And the only way I had to go through the online, because I went online to see, and it basically made me like remove some posts and stuff in order for me to continue using Instagram.
yeah, I went through that. I'm banned from ads, and my business page goes through waves because of Facebook doesn't allow the sale of firearms or ammunition. And no matter what, I mean, like, from a simple sense, just threw that on the floor. These are not usable. Like,
and they're just casings.
They're inert.
These have already been shot. And for anybody out there that wants to tell me that I'm the reason that ammo is so expensive, I'm not. Thank you for trying. But they're used. Nobody's gonna drill through this epoxy to make these usable ever again. My earrings are completely Dremel down, so no matter what combination of replica or recycled I use, I sell ammunition apparently.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. But guys, if you know, especially any ladies out there who want some stylish 2A accessories or decorations for your home, coasters. I know Brianna offers a lot of different stuff on our website. Go check her out, give her some support. And Pete, where can people find you?
Yeah, find me on YouTube at TFN15. I should be dropping a brand new spanking new video this week, and on Instagram at TFN.15.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys. Head in those comments, discuss what we talked about. How do we save self-defense? And leave the video a like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.